and a special good evening to our public, hopefully looking at us in cyberspace. We do get one or two of you, but it's nice to know that somebody takes our deliberations seriously in the way that we must. So, item 1 is for any council member to declare any interest that he or she may have on an item on the agenda. Are there any? Trees? No interest in trees particularly, no? So we can pass over then to item 2, and it's for you to decide whether or not you approve the minutes of the last meeting as presented to you as a true and correct record. Is that the case? Yeah. That's agreed, and I can sign them on your behalf as a true record. So many bits of paper. Right, thank you very much. And your next item is our usual report on enforcement matters and appeals. I think there have been 5 appeals and 4 have been dismissed and our decision upheld. And there's just the awkward squad in the shape of this particular inspector who's allowed the appeal on 47 Calder Road. I think it's a particular point, and I don't know, Susan, as our Chief Officer, do you want to say anything about that? Is the department downhearted to have lost?
Thank you, Chair. This is the first appeal that we've had on the government's new PD, permitted development allowances that enable householders to go up a storey on their property. It's obviously it's an application that or a proposal that we didn't think was appropriate. The inspector has allowed it, and I think what we have to take from that is that the planning inspector is supporting the government's general stance that such developments are acceptable. So I think it's something that we need to learn from going forward. That's the approach that clearly PIN's are taking.
This is something which obviously we rejected, the application.
Yes. Because of the
in the belief that we were doing the neighbours in Calder Road a service.
In terms of the visual impact, where you have a street of 2-storey properties, to then have one property that goes above that, inevitably has what we consider to be a significant visual impact, but the government's been quite clear that these things can be acceptable, and obviously the planning inspectorate has gone with that.
Okay, you want to come in? Councillor Stansfield.
Can I just ask, we've got a 200800 47 Calder Road, appeal dismissed, and then 210096 47 Calder Road, appeal allowed. Is this the same development but just doesn't happen to fall, one didn't fall within the catchment and one did, or, because to me it reads as though it's the same development of 2 applications, yet we've got one saying that it's been dismissed and the next one saying it's allowed?
I think one scheme had a hipped roof and the other one had a gable, and that was the difference. So the schemes were slightly different.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks. Item 4 on your agenda, it's an enforcement update. Same old story of lots and lots of items with enforcement. They're doing their best. That's all we can say. Any comment, or we just accept the report? I think we should. Thank you. And then, because we all like trees, item 5, you're asked to confirm the tree preservation order, which, as you see, was dealt with by the department. The consultation period has elapsed, and we simply want, or the department, the council is wanting you to confirm or otherwise that decision. Will somebody move approval? Vice Chairman? Councillor Stansfield to second. Those in favour, please.
Chair,
Sorry?
would you like the Principal Officer to just outline the report to the members?
I think we've got it all, have we not? Do we want Ms Parker to say a bit? Yeah? Okay.
Thank
It's
you.
moved and seconded that we approve it anyway. Ms Parker.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this application is before members because there has been an objection made against the proposed creation of a tree preservation order. The TPO would be at 88 All Hallows Road and would relate to 7 trees to the north of the property. They are all individual specimens. They don't form a coherent group for the purposes of a TPO. 5 of them are sycamore, the other 2 are a pear and an apple. The trees are considered to warrant protection because of known development pressures in the vicinity that have the potential to increase in the future and because they contribute to the setting of the Grade 2 listed All Hallows Church. The trees have been assessed using the tempo method and are considered to be good specimens in fair condition, and it's anticipated they will continue to provide public amenity value for another 50 years or more. In particular, tree 2 provides habitat value and is near veteran status. The council served its notice of its intention to create the TPO in June 2021, and an objection was received from the Diocese of Blackburn later that month. The objection, submitted by an arboriculturalist on their behalf, disputed the quality of the trees, advised that one of the apple trees is a pear tree, and asserted that the site plan was incorrect. The council's Parks Development Manager maintains that the trees are of sufficient quality to warrant a TPO, and it's therefore proposed that it be confirmed, albeit with modifications to make reference to a pear tree instead of an apple tree, and to correct the site plan. And members should note that the corrected site plan has accidentally been omitted from the agenda but would be included in the final TPO. And so members are respectfully requested to support the creation of this TPO order.
When is an apple a pear? It doesn't affect the general report and the findings. We just misidentified a tree. Are we happy with the report? Yep. A vote? Those in favour of confirming? Thank you very much. We all love trees and we're trying to plant more, so we don't want to be pulling them down or not giving them as much protection as they should enjoy. Okay? And then tree preservation order item 6, Stockydale Road. And we do have a lady who wishes to speak to us on this matter.
Powell, if you could just turn your YouTube to mute, if that, I think that's coming from yours.
Do you want me to introduce the item?
So, Susan, are you coming in again on this one?
Thank you, Chair. Again, this item is before members because there's been an objection made against the TPO. This one would be at 60A Stockydale Road and would relate to 5 trees to the northwest of the property. All of them again are individual specimens that don't form a coherent group. 3 of them are sycamore, the other 2 are horse chestnut. The trees are considered to warrant protection because of known development pressure and because the assessment and TPO were triggered by a planning application which posed an immediate threat from a proposed development which would affect the root systems and potentially cause ill health of the trees or loss of tree cover. Again, the trees have been assessed using the tempo method and are in fair to good condition and in their semi-mature state provide immunity to the surrounding area. As they are semi-mature, they will be present for some time and benefit the area further as they mature. 1 or 2 trees may need removing in the future to benefit the dominant specimens, and this can be done through the planning process. The council served notice of its intention to create the TPO in May 2021 and an objection was received in June. The objection disputed the quality of the trees and the reason for making the order. And to clarify, section 198 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 states that a TPO should be made if it is expedient in the interest of amenity to do so. The council's Parks Development Manager again maintains that the trees are of sufficient quality to warrant a TPO and it's therefore proposed that it be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. is Mrs. Danielle Powell. Do you want to come in and have your 7 minutes?
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Hi, I'm Danielle Powell, the owner of the trees and property in which they are cited. I've been debating whether or not to speak, but after noticing both the officer and temporary assessments yesterday, I thought it best to respond. Have you all had access to my original objection?
Yes, I think so.
You've all read that.
Yep.
The officer's assessment of TPO point 6.1 states that principal planning officer requested the Parks Development Manager to assess the trees and their relative value in order to inform the discovery of the planning application. I submitted the planning application on the 8th of March. The 8 weeks are around on the 3rd of May. The decision letter states the refusal was dated the 20th of April. The date of the temporary assessment was the 7th of May, and the TPO was dated the 12th of May. The request for assessment would not have been to a determination as a refusal had already been sent. Is it common practice to request this after refusing an application? In 6.2 of the officer's assessment, it's Mr. Hodgson's response to my objection. It states that the Parks Development Manager points out that there are several criteria to attend for assessment, and it is not solely based on the condition of a tree and the defects present. Considerations such as community, longevity, usability, other factors and expediency. As can be seen from my original objection, I put all of these points which leads me to believe Mr. Hodgson did not enter the land. The bushes that make up my boundary are high, and it would be physically impossible to conduct an accurate assessment of the condition of the trees without gaining access. This may also be the reason for refusing the installation of the lack of detail in the temporary assessment. Point 6.2 also goes on to state that the trees in question are visible around the north section of Suckdale Road, the north section of Bugler Lane North, and visible from the surrounding properties, in addition to contributing to the surrounding tree population and providing habitat to the local wildlife. The same statement will be made about every tree in the vicinity being of the area of the rural. As per the government guidelines, whilst it may be established that trees can be seen and used from a number of public or private locations, this does not itself warrant a TPO. The tree's individual, collective and wider impact must be assessed in terms of its size and form, future amenity potential, the amount of other trees in the landscape and the appropriateness of the tree in a local and wider context. 6.3 refers to expediency based on our proposed development. And it still starts as such when the assessment was completed after the application has been refused. The trees will not be affected by logistics or material storage. There are ways and means to build upon the land property without causing damage to the trees or roof, which was already discussed with Nard Goldrick prior to my original application. Key queries for the temple assessment completed. As the trees are being classed as individual trees, not as group or woodland, should they not each have an individual temple assessment? Part 1b, Mr. Hodgson has stated that as trees mature, one or two may be removed. It's rather vague. Should one or two trees have a lower score? Should each individual tree have the same rate of visibility? The visibility of the red forest chestnut tree is blocked by the sycamores and blue. The Parks Development Manager managed to control it. Was this due to the visibility? And as per the KFL, the rating tree description should not be used unless it is justified. The rating is therefore incorrect due to the definitions.
Danielle, sorry to interrupt.
Including the proposal was submitted on the 9th of June 2020. I must again question the experience of the TPO and the planning department have been aware that I wish to build a law since June 2020. They have refused my planning application on 2 occasions, and they were aware that I would be appealing this law deciding to request the assessment. How can it be determined as an immediate threat when the planning department have been aware for almost a year? If the assessment was completed accurately and impartially for each individual tree, the ratings would be between 11 and 14. If we should then take into account the predominant green environment that they are located, we would confirm that TPOs are not justified. I have a few contradictory assessments that I found while searching upon the planning database. One of them, very green environment, the trees are of less importance because they were not in the urban planning. Then there was no one that the same or similar trees with the same issues present, TPO is not justified because we were just beautiful trees. There's another one which is a moss semi-rural area, significant amount of trees in the area, TPO not justified. Another one with the same surrounding, same type of trees, TPO not justified, based on the type and nature of the trees and surrounding areas. Have you all seen my video? I have a video playing now of the local area.
Yes, we can see it. Yes, thank you.
All down Stockdale Road, and a few pictures that I've taken from my garden this afternoon. You can clearly see the amount of trees in the area, and it's showing that obviously the area is a predominantly green environment, and therefore the TPO is an inappropriate use of TPO and completely unnecessary.
Is that the conclusion of your remarks, Mrs. Powell? Thank you very much indeed.
Have you seen the rest of the video? It goes on.
Yes, we're watching it intently. There's a lot of green on it.
I've only done our road. I haven't done on the Jubilee Lane North as stated by the other officer either. Or I haven't gone on to Chapel Road, which are also predominantly green environments.
Are you suggesting that all these trees should be TPO'd?
I'm suggesting mine are worthy of a TPO based on amenity. Surely all of them should be also.
Thank you very much indeed. I take it that concludes your representations.
It does, yes.
Thank you very much. Well, colleagues, it's before you. You've heard the representations from the resident, Mrs. Powell. She clearly feels that the TPO should not be confirmed. It is for you to decide whether or not that should happen. So, is there a proposal that we should confirm this decision, make the order? Vice Chairman? Yes, certainly.
It's just a question. How many of those trees have TPOs or are about to receive TPOs?
None currently have TPOs.
The proposal is to TPO 5 of them. The one thing I was going to say in response to the representations, that obviously our tree officer isn't present this evening, and in terms of the technical points that were raised regarding the trees and the quality of the trees, I'm not able to respond on those issues.
No, we're concerned only with these 5 trees.
Yeah, it was just a query on,
Yeah.
on the presentation, that's all.
So, is it moved? Vice Chairman, are you moving approval or confirmation? Oh, sorry, Councillor Stansfield. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I've read the report and I've listened carefully to what the objectors had to say. Am I getting the impression that she thinks that it should be a lot wider and all these should be considered? And is this a starting point of what we're looking at, or is this going to be, this is what we're going to be looking at and the rest aren't going to be? I mean, I can see this, because if it is, I think we really need to have this conversation with our tree officers rather than just make a decision now on this particular one without them being present. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, waiting for a response on that. I think the query is that it's why are these particular trees being picked out. The reason for that is because we have had a planning application submitted, but as you say, that could be the case on a number of plots. So perhaps it would be advisable to have the tree officer provide further justification as to why these particular trees warrant the TPO, but that would be up to committee to request.
It's at the beginning of the first paragraph. An application seems to, well, obviously likely to affect the roots of these trees, and our tree advisor comes in and explains what his view is, and as a result of that, the order is made. Anybody else? Yeah, surely. You're deputising, I think, for Councillor Baker tonight.
I am indeed, Chair, yeah. I just find it difficult after watching the video for us to sit here and make a decision on so many trees, whether they're going to be given an order or not. I think the experts should be in here to give a deeper explanation rather than just read it off a piece of paper. I think this needs to go a step further, but that's just my opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Well, of course, our expertise comes to us in the form of reports. It's very, very rarely that we have need for an officer to come along. The report generally says sufficient for us to make a decision. But as you see, this is an application came in for external alterations to this property, and obviously the department felt it would have an impact on the trees, and that's why we bring in the assistance of our expert. And those are his findings, and we're asked to confirm them. The order has been made, it went out to consultation. Mrs. Powell obviously has made her views known. I think it's generally the case that most owners of trees don't like TPOs on them. And the usual explanation or the usual argument is that we've no intention of taking the tree out or pruning it or anything. And of course it does create a certain level of aggravation by a householder when these things are debated. But we are, as an authority, obliged to take care of trees which have amenity value, and we are advised in this report that these trees do in fact add significantly to the quality of life in that immediate neighbourhood. We expect our officers to report to us fairly and honestly, and I don't think there's anything here that suggests otherwise. Anybody else wish to speak? It's moved by the Vice Chairman that we confirm the order. Does anybody second it?
Chair, I'm happy to second, but I would just like to, in the future, if we look at all the other trees around that area as well, I'd be very grateful for that as well, for a level of fairness, but I am happy to second it.
Yeah, Councillor Farrell seconds it. It's like everything else. I mean, there's plenty of work to be done there, isn't there?
Absolutely.
It's moved and seconded. Nobody else wishes to speak. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of confirming the TPO, please show. Anybody against? 3 against. Well, so much for our, is it arboriculture or whatever? But the decision by the committee is the TPO is confirmed. Thank you. Mrs. Powell will be disappointed, but there we go. Mrs. Powell is now leaving us. Item 7, a very important application for full approval concerning the Council's proposed development on Grange Park. An exciting development in many ways, both for the numbers of dwellings that are involved, for the quality of them, and for the way that we are trying to improve the quality of amenity in that immediate neighbourhood for all the other residents on Grange Park. It's nice to see a pocket park being created. But initially, Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an application for major scale residential development on Grange Park. It hasn't been subject to any objections, but it's before members because it's a council project. It relates to 2 sites. One is roughly rectangular and is to the southeast of the junction between Chepstow Road and Gateside Drive, and the second is wedge-shaped and sits to the south of the school and the medical centre behind the Grange on Dinmore Avenue. The proposal is for 131 affordable homes. As set out in the report, the development of Site A would result in the loss of some designated public open space, and the development of Site B would result in the loss of a designated, albeit unused, school playing field. As stated, the loss of the POS is unfortunate and does weigh against the proposal, but this needs to be balanced against the benefits of the scheme, not only in terms of housing provision, but also on the basis that the development would be entirely affordable. And given that Blackpool has a significant unmet need for affordable housing, the provision proposed here weighs very strongly in favour of the application. A financial contribution has been agreed that would go towards the provision or improvement of off-site public open space to compensate for that which would be lost. The school playing field has not been used as such for many years, and subject to the payment of monies towards off-site provision to mitigate the loss, Sport England has no objection to the scheme, and the loss of the playing field on this basis is considered to be acceptable. Financial contributions have also been agreed towards local education and healthcare provision. As the council is the applicant and developer, it is not possible for these financial contributions to be secured through the normal route of a Section 106 agreement. Instead, a memorandum of understanding is to be drafted, and Sport England have confirmed that they are happy with this approach. Turning to housing mix, the scheme proposes a proportion of one-bed units that would conflict with adopted policy. However, the one-bed units proposed would be intended as sheltered housing type accommodation for older people, and at present the council cannot offer this type of accommodation to residents, and our housing strategy manager has confirmed that there is an identified need for such provision. As such, and on balance, the scheme is considered to be acceptable in principle. The units proposed would all meet national floor space standards, and this weighs in favour of the scheme. Some of the separation distances between properties fall a little short of standards, but not sufficiently to be of concern, and it is difficult to see how the sites could be laid out differently to overcome these shortfalls without compromising overall efficiency of land use. It is felt that any amenity impacts arising from noise and so on can be adequately avoided through the impositions of the conditions recommended. The designs of the properties are considered to be acceptable in the context, as are the materials proposed. Reasonable landscaping proposals are included, and these will be effective in softening the appearance of the development and greening the street scene. No unacceptable highways issues have been identified. Parking is a little short of standards, but the site is considered to be well located relative to nearby shops and services, and so the limited parking is not considered to weigh significantly against the proposal. No issues relating to drainage, flood risk, ecology or environmental quality are identified, and some features to maximise sustainability are proposed. Overall, and subject to the conditions listed, the scheme is considered to be acceptable, and it is felt that planning permission should be granted. As members will be aware, an update note has been circulated. This provides an update on the education contribution and some of the conditions. It also advises that we are still waiting on a response from Natural England in relation to the Habitats Regulations assessment that has been submitted and that the Council has agreed to adopt. The recommendation is therefore that members resolve to support the proposal and defer the application to me as Head of DM to issue the planning permission once the necessary memorandum of understanding has been finalised and subject to Natural England raising no issues. Thank you.
Colleagues, any thoughts?
Chair, we do actually have a speaker on this one.
Who's coming in?
Yeah, we have Claire Parker who would like to speak on this. She's the agent.
Right, can we welcome the agent to make representations?
My name is Claire Parker. I am a planning consultant at Cassidy and Ashton, and we have acted as the planners and architects for this application. The proposals presented to you this evening comprise the construction of 131 dwellings, all of which will be available for affordable rent and managed by Blackpool Coastal Housing. The mix of property sizes and types proposed has been evidence-led through consideration of identified local need. Many people living on Grange Park have grown up in the area, and when their housing needs change, they wish to remain on the estate. Therefore, the intention of this development is to offer several different accommodation types to support the overall housing stock offer within Grange Park, including house types for which there is limited or no current supply. The majority of units proposed are 2 bedrooms, as this represents a large undersupply within the existing social housing stock. In addition, there are bungalows, flats and larger units, which will also contribute to the housing mix on site and which have been selected based upon waiting list evidence. The proposed sheltered accommodation flats represent the first fully accessible and adaptable units of this type within Blackpool. There are also no true 2-bed bungalows within the local authority's current housing stock, and so those proposed within this development will support those looking to acquire this type of property. Currently, a number of homes within Grange Park are under-occupied, and so by introducing alternative, smaller house types within the estate, this will allow residents to move into more suitable accommodation for their needs within the area in which they already live and have connections, whilst allowing the release of existing housing stock, which has been utilised inefficiently. The development would look to build upon the success of other social housing schemes undertaken by the Council's housing division in recent years, adding to the borough's existing stock of affordable rent properties in priority areas. Design principles and drivers from these developments have influenced the proposals presented here. However, the overriding design principle has been to support a sustainable and inclusive community. This has resulted in the mix of housing presented and the range of public facilities, including an orchard, community green, play area and pocket park, which will be available to new and existing residents alike. A significant area of outdoor space will be gifted to Boundary Primary School, improving their external provision of play space. New pathways will provide links through the site and retain easy access to the existing facilities on Dinmore Avenue, as well as to the new open space provision. The open space will be drained and have appropriate lighting to ensure its usability. New planting and hard standing materials will create an inviting space which is legible for all users and well maintained as part of Blackpool Coastal Housing's maintenance schedule. Alongside the benefits of providing additional social housing to the borough and the new formalised areas of public open space, the applicant has also agreed to a number of financial contributions to support the provision of new facilities in the area. As a driver of this development, the Council's Housing Department are keen, should the application be approved, to immediately push ahead with the scheme, with the expectation being that development would commence on site in the new year. The proposals therefore represent an appropriate form of development in this location, supported by the application site's inclusion within a wider housing site allocation within the emerging Blackpool Local Plan Part 2 document, with a resulting positive contribution toward the borough's affordable housing requirements. With particular regard to Site A, the proposals represent an opportunity to redevelop a significant area of previously developed land. The units would add to the mix and number of properties available for social rent within the borough and provide alternative choice of housing provision to enable people to stay within the estate when their housing needs change. The proposals are considered entirely appropriate and represent an overwhelmingly beneficial scheme for the area of Grange Park, positively contributing to the character and appearance of the wider area. On this basis, we fully endorse the recommendations of your officers to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Parker, for that. Very much amplifying what is before us in the report. Does Councillor Robertson want to come in?
I need to declare a personal interest as I sit on the Blackpool Coastal Housing Board as a non-executive director.
Right, okay, that's noted. Yeah. Ms Parker?
Thank you, Chair. Just to let members know, I've just picked up an email from Natural England. They have withdrawn their objection, so that element of our deferral falls away.
Right. Any contribution otherwise? Yeah, Councillor Farrell?
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say, actually, it is a very exciting development, but I'm actually really pleased to read in the report on page 47 about biodiversity enhancement and with hedgehog gaps and provision of bird and bat boxes. I think that's really great news to hear, and I hope we see that in more developments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Clearly, an awful lot of thought has gone into this. Grange Park, it's been a bit of a mishmash. It was obviously designed to try and reduce traffic speeds on the estate, but it's had, in some respects, an unfortunate time trying to combine the 1950 developments with those of the 1960s. But this, you know, the little park in itself is a considerable mark of progress. But it is something which I think all of us can very much welcome. And there'll be a lot of families out there very pleased indeed that, you know, the waiting list will come down as a result of this development coming on stream. So, it's before you with a recommendation for approval. Councillor Stansfield?
Yeah, I quite agree. It's an excellent development. What I am disappointed about is yet again the council puts forward this huge development with very little green energy, site for green strategies and all the rest of it. And yet again, it just seems to have fallen by the wayside that we are not leading the way in all these when we should. I mean, we're not asking other developments, or we don't appear to be asking other developers to do it. But at least we should be doing it ourselves. So I am rather disappointed to see that we've got very little renewable sources, even though we've got climate emergency and we've got green strategies, and there's very little in this. But the actual development itself, yes, I do like the development, and I think it's much needed.
Sorry, Susan.
Thank you,
What in fact did you have in mind that it should incorporate?
Well, we've got no solar. You know, we just seem to bypass it, and it seems to be time and time again that our developments come forward and they just lack these renewable energy.
Is there any reason for that, Susan?
I would imagine in this case it will be viability. I'm sure Claire can explain more than I can. I'm just trying to scroll through the report now because I know they are proposing some environmental benefits. I think
yeah.
I'm trying to find it now.
I think it's a well-made point. I don't think any of us is going to disagree with Councillor Stansfield on that. Generally speaking, it comes down to cost. That's always one of the reasons why developers are always a bit shy. But can Claire Parker assist us on that?
And also heat pumps on site. Obviously, we've not yet started detailed design, so that will be finalised at that point. But it has been considered.
Well, there's a whole wealth of things that we could be doing, and we're in that environment, aren't we? We're thinking seriously about trees, yes, those on the agenda tonight, but more particularly, it is the impact on the environment of all these developments, and if we can add to the offer, so much the better. And it's always cheaper to incorporate these features when a property is being built than retrofitting afterwards, and I think that's something that developers ought to bear in mind.
Chair, I've just scrolled down. It's 11.11.4 of the report that lists the sustainability measures, and as Claire said, it does include renewable heat sources, more efficient heating mechanisms, measures to reduce water consumption, and energy efficient lighting options. So I think within the viability constraints that they will be dealing with, they are trying to do what they can. The other thing I do need to point out is that at the moment in planning policy there is no stipulation for particular energy efficiency measures, and I'd get the point that we should be setting the example, but I should be pointing that out.
Well, a major development, colleagues. Is it moved for approval? Anybody? Councillor Farrell moves approval. Anybody to second? Councillor Vice Chairman, Councillor O'Hara. Anybody, those in favour, please show. That's a unanimous decision. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure Councillor Stansfield's remarks are very much taken to heart. Okay, thanks. Item 8 is a matter which could have been approved under the Department's delegated powers. No objections to the development, but I thought it proper that we bring it to committee to see and understand a potentially very attractive development in a bit of backland. Obviously it's recommended for approval. I'll ask Susan if she wants to introduce the matter.
Actually, Claire that's introducing this one, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Take a break.
Oh, Claire. Oh, it's Claire over in cyberspace, isn't it? I'm sorry. Claire, come in. It's your little pigeon.
Thank you very much. This is a full planning application for 5 two-storey detached dwellings on a parcel of land to the rear of 17 to 21 Moss House Road. The site's accessed off Moss House Road between numbers 17 and 21. Historically, it was used as a nursery, but it hasn't been used for many years. The site's within South Blackpool Housing Growth Area under Policy CS25. And in 2019, committee approved an outline scheme for access to the site for 5 houses. So the principle of housing development on this scale is considered to be acceptable. The scheme would contribute to the borough's housing provision, although with just 5 dwellings, that contribution would be minor. Members will be aware of the ongoing housing development at Redwood Point in the wider Moss House Road area, which is anticipated to deliver 422 dwellings, but this application site is unrelated to that development, but sits within it. In terms of housing mix, 3 of the houses will provide 3 bedrooms and 2 would be 4 bedrooms. and this is considered to be an appropriate mix in this location. The houses would largely meet nationally described space standards and would have sufficient private amenity space and would provide a good standard of accommodation for future occupants. The neighbour at 21 Moss House Road has objected to the scheme, and those objections are explained in the committee report. But as set out in the report, the layout of the proposed development provides sufficient separation distances between the proposed houses, the existing houses, and the approved but not yet built houses at Redwood Point, and so no unacceptable amenity issues are anticipated. The houses are standard house types that are similar in style and materials to those on the wider housing development, and so the proposed houses will be in keeping with the new houses in the area. Car parking provisions considered to be acceptable, as each property would have 4 parking spaces, and this exceeds the parking standards. 2 additional spaces off the access would also be provided for visitors. The Head of Highways and Traffic Management has raised no concerns with the access or the parking provision, subject to various conditions, including the requirement to provide electric vehicle charging infrastructure. In terms of drainage, the site would have a drainage pond where most of the surface water runoff will be directed before being discharged at an attenuated rate. There is a drainage ditch to the rear or the north of the site, and United Utilities have asked that this is considered as part of the drainage strategy for this site. However, that watercourse will form part of the Redwood Point drainage system, and it's unclear when it will be linked and functional. Members might be aware that development rate has slowed down quite dramatically on Redwood Point. As such, our drainage officer is supporting the drainage strategy as shown in principle, subject to conditions agreeing the finer details, and on that basis, the development should drain satisfactorily without causing flood risk elsewhere. A tree protection plan has been submitted demonstrating that the development could proceed without harming more mature trees and hedgerows around the site, and tree planting is proposed within the site. Detailed landscaping to be agreed by condition, along with boundary details and ecological enhancements to ensure that the scheme would deliver ecological benefits to the area. Given the size of the site, no public open space could be provided on site, and so a contribution of £5,848 should be secured to provide or enhance public open space off site. So the recommendation to members is to approve the application subject to the conditions in the committee report and the signing of a Section 106 agreement for public open space contributions.
Thank you very much indeed, Claire. It's recommended for approval, subject to a whole raft of conditions which you would expect on a development of this kind. Any comment from members? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing that I can pick up on it is there doesn't seem to be enough parking space. I know it mentions parking spaces, but there's quite a few bedrooms there with 5 houses, 2-storey houses which have 4 bedrooms. That's 8, and 3 threes are 9. That's 17 bedrooms. In today's society, houses usually have more than 1 car. I was wondering if that could be sort of looked at and slightly rectified. I believe the original proposal was something close to 20 parking spaces. I might be wrong, but I thought it was more than what's in here. Thank you, Chair.
What you're saying, that the car parking provision is inadequate? Claire, any views on that? Claire Parker? Sorry.
Well, there's 4 parking spaces for each dwelling, and that exceeds the minimum, the requirements in the parking standards. Plus, there's 2 additional parking spaces in the access. So. Yeah,
we can only guide developers to standards that we, minimum and whatever. If they put more in, fine, but the provision is within our policy, and we can't really go beyond that. It doesn't matter what property there are people visiting a house. You're always going to have an issue of parking, but it's probably as good as we could get. Anybody else? Any other views? It's recommended for approval. Would anybody move approval subject to the conditions? I'll move it. Anybody second me? Councillor Farrell. Those in favour, please show. That's a unanimous decision. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Item 9, date of your next meeting, 12th of October. Noted. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance, contributions from out of the room, members of the public, objectors, and indeed our advisors. Thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned.